We are going to learn about CER paragraphs. That stands for Claim, Evidence, Reason. A CER is a paragraph in which a student makes a claim, uses evidence to support the claim, and then uses reasoning to explain how the evidence supports the claim. A CER is a simplified version of the structure for nearly all expository and persuasive/argumentative essays. Let's take a look at the basic elements of a CER. First part is the claim. The claim is the foundation of the paragraph. All sentences should support the stance mentioned in the claim. If I write a CER claiming, "I think dogs are the best pet ever," every sentence after should be explaining why dogs are the best pet ever. In English 9, our CERs will often be in response to something we have read. A claim sentence should have the name of the work you are talking about, such as the essay or article or story, the author's name, and the claim the author is making in the literary work, or the claim you are making about the work, depending on what you are being asked to do. Here are two examples of some claim sentences. In the short story, There Will Come Soft Rains, author Ray Bradbury is warning humanity about the dangers of technology. The movie Toy Story, written by Stephanie Folsom, is about the dangers of jealousy. In both of these examples, I am making claims about the topic or themes of these stories, the big ideas that they really talk about. Later, we'll go through some examples and show the evidence that I can use to support these and my reasoning sentences of how my evidence supports the claim. Our next section is evidence. Once you have a claim sentence, you need to back it up with evidence. Just like in a court case, you can't just accuse someone of a crime, you need to have evidence to back it up. Evidence in a courtroom can be eyewitnesses, fingerprints, or DNA. Evidence in an English class comes in the form of sentences from the text. This can be done with direct quotes or through paraphrasing, which is basically to write something in your own words. With evidence, the first part we need is to have directly quote or thoroughly paraphrase a section of the article that supports the claim. The second part in an evidence sentence is that we use phrases that indicate that this is evidence. Something like, for example, the author writes, and then we put in our evidence. An important fact in the article is, and we put in a quote from the text that is our evidence. Or the author shows this by, again, and we put in that evidence that we have. Let's look at how evidence would look with a direct quote. Here again we have this claim sentence of, in the short story, There Will Come Soft Rains, author Ray Bradbury is warning humanity about the dangers of technology. So we're going to find a direct quote from the text and we're going to cite it. It would sound something like this. One important detail Bradbury writes is, the house stood alone in a city of rubble and ashes. This was the one house left standing. You can see that the second half of the sentence is in quotation marks. This is literally a sentence from the story. Let's now look at the paraphrasing example. Again, paraphrasing is to put something in your own words. Let's look at our claim sentence from earlier about Toy Story. The movie Toy Story, written by Stephanie Folsom, is about the dangers of jealousy. Our evidence sentence in a paraphrasing way would sound something like this. The movie shows the effects of jealousy by Woody becoming increasingly mean and petty towards Buzz, despite him being kind and helpful at the beginning of the movie. Instead of using direct quotes like I did the first time, this time I am just explaining what has happened in the movie in my own words. A well-done CER will typically use both paraphrasing and direct quotes. However, it should be noted that direct quotes are a much more effective use of evidence than paraphrasing. If you're only going to use one, it is best to use direct quotes. Our next section is going to be reason, the last part of our CER. Evidence by itself is not enough to be a convincing argument. In the example we had earlier of a court case, you can't prove a murder simply by showing the murder weapon. You have to explain how the murder weapon is linked to the suspect. You have to show the reason why the evidence is compelling. In an English class, we have to explain why the sentence we quoted or the sentence we paraphrased links to the claim. There are two major parts to a reason sentence. The first part is clearly explaining why the evidence supports the claim. The other part of a reason sentence is using academic phrases like, "this is important because," and then explaining why your evidence backs up the claim. Or, "this passage demonstrates," and then putting in your reasoning. Let's look back again at our Toy Story example. Our claim is the movie Toy Story, written by Stephanie Folsom, is about the dangers of jealousy. My evidence is the movie shows the effects of jealousy by Woody becoming increasingly mean and petty towards Buzz, despite him being kind and helpful at the beginning of the movie. Now I need to explain how the evidence backs up the claim. And so I would say something along the lines of, this change in Woody shows how jealousy negatively affects him. It changes his personality, causing him to go from a kind leader to a bit of a bully and eventually puts him in danger. I am trying to be as clear as possible in showing what the evidence means. Let's look back at our other example. We have the claim in the short story, There Will Come Soft Rains. Author Ray Bradbury is warning humanity about the dangers of technology. My evidence is, one detail Bradbury writes is, the house stood alone in a city of rubble and ashes. There was one house left standing. Now I have to explain why that quote I used backs up the claim. So I'm going to say, by showing the house is alone in the rubble, Bradbury is illustrating the amount of damage our technology can do. The entire city has been destroyed, along with the people who lived there, by man-made devices. I'm trying to explain here that the quote that the house stood alone in the city of rubble and ashes, and was the only one left standing, supports that idea that Bradbury is warning us about the dangers of technology, that our explosives, our devices, could do something that would destroy all of humanity, and that's what that quote means. Let's practice doing a CER together. We're going to read a selection from the article, The Surprising Benefits of Reading 20 Minutes a Day by Pamela Haig. I'm going to read, and I want you to read along with me. The process of you reading the article while hearing it will increase your ability to comprehend the article and your reading ability. Reading 20 minutes a day has benefits for the health and strength of your brain. Reading is a complicated process, and as you read, your brain changes. When you read, your mind creates new circuits and connections. As your reading skills grow, these connections in the brain get more substantial and complex. One study involved conducting brain scans on the brain over several days as the participants read a novel. As the storyline became tenser, the brain scans showed more and more brain areas with activity. They continued the brain scans for several days after the participants finished reading the novel. Brain activity continued to increase in connectivity. Take a moment to consider what we just read. I want you to think about what was the main idea here? What was the purpose? What was the author, Pamela Haig, really trying to say about the benefits of reading 20 minutes a day? If we look through the article, we can find a direct quote that explains what the main idea was. Reading 20 minutes a day has benefits for the health and strength of your brain. We can also paraphrase this as something like, reading 20 minutes a day is good for your brain. This is the main idea. This is the essence of what the article is trying to tell us. This is the article's claim. Now that we know the claim, let's look through the article and see if we can find the evidence that the author put in there to support this claim. I have highlighted some of the basic facts here in the article that the author uses as evidence and that we would use as evidence in a CER. Let's take a minute to look through them. Again, I'm going to read, and I want you to read along with me. As you read, your brain changes. When you read, your mind creates new circuits and connections. Reading skills grow. These connections in the brain get more substantial and complex. You notice that I'm not selecting every single word. I'm just getting the main ideas of the evidence. This next one's a good one. One study involved conducting brain scans. Anytime we see numbers or dates or things like that, or when a study has been done, we can kind of think of that as a solid fact, a good piece of evidence. So in this case, one study involved scanning the brain, and the participants read a novel. The brain scan showed more and more brain areas with activity. Several days after the study was over, brain activity continued to increase in connectivity. So this is showing us the results of a scientific study concerning brain scans and reading, and brain functions and reading. Okay, let's look at the information we have so far. We read the article, and we know we have the claim of reading 20 minutes a day has the benefits for the health and strength of your brain. And we went through and we highlighted some basic facts. As you read, your brain changes. When you read, your mind creates new circuits and connections, and your reading skills grow. These connections in the brain get more substantial and complex. We mentioned that the brain scans continued for several days after the participants finished reading the novel, and brain activity continued to increase in connectivity. So here we have a claim and we have a bunch of evidence. Let's see how we could put this into a CER. I'm going to write a CER, we're going to read it, and then we're going to take it apart and see how each section of the CER fills the requirements. So here is my CER. Once again, I'm going to read, and I want you to read along with me. In the article, The Surprising Benefits of Reading 20 Minutes a Day by Pamela Haig, the author claims that daily reading strengthens your brain. For example, the author states, as you read, your brain changes. Your mind creates new circuits and connections. This is important because it demonstrates that the impact of reading isn't merely opinion, but it shows there are measurable physical changes occurring in the brain as a result of reading. The author also writes, for several days after reading, brain activity continued to increase in connectivity. This backs up the author's claim by showing that the benefits of reading continue, and I didn't finish this clearly. Sorry about that. This last sentence should read, this backs up the author's claim by showing that the benefits of reading continue beyond the time spent reading the book, just like lifting weights benefits our bodies beyond the time spent in the gym. So let's take apart this CER. We have the title here, The Surprising Benefits of Reading 20 Minutes a Day. We have the author's name, Pamela Haig. And we have the claim, daily reading strengthens your brain. The evidence here, for example, the author states, as you read, your brain changes, your mind creates new circuits and connections. This is a direct quote from the text, and I use the academic language. For example, the author states. And with our reason, we have, it isn't merely opinion, but shows there are measurable physical changes occurring in the brain as a result of reading. This is our backup stuff. And this is important because is our academic language. Now it's your turn. Read the article, Zoos Should Be Banned by Megan Zhou in the same School G folder where you found this video. Write a CER on it. What claim do you think the author is trying to make? What is their claim? What evidence do they have in the article that backs up this claim? And how does this evidence support that? Try using the sentence frames below. For our claim, try something like, in the article, give the article's name, by, give the author's name, the article claims, and tell us the main idea, what the article is actually claiming. For an evidence sentence, try something like, for example, the author writes, and then insert your evidence from the text. And lastly, for our reason one, Use something along the lines of, this is important because, and then explain why the evidence supports the claim. Once you have done this, either review it with your WISE lab teacher or with me before we move on to the next step.